Hey there, comrades. This episode ran a little long, so we ended up splitting it into 2 parts. Just so you know, Aiden, we are still getting to your question about collaborative art making. That will be on part 2 of this episode, so tune in next week for that. This episode, we talk a little more about artists in general, different kinds of art, and how they can be affected by communism. Another programming note, you are going to hear some miscellaneous noise brought to you by our special guest star, my husband, who is clacking on his keyboard, opening cupboards, just being a person who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. Sorry about that, but just kind of the reality of the situation right now. Tune in next week for part 2 of this episode. Enjoy.
Hello.
Hey.
Are you ready to hear a tale of woe?
A tale of woe. Yes, I am. That sounds great.
I'm glad you're enjoying. It's my woe, so you're enjoying my woe.
This isn't really Misery Loves Company, is it? This is just Misery Loves an Audience?
Yes. I'm dramatic,
All right.
and I like to complain.
Let's hear it.
So we're looking for a house again, and
Nice.
it's been challenging. We just started looking. It's only been like 2 weeks, but Kyle's like a puppy in that he gets very excited about things, and then he gets me excited about things. And so, like, we saw a house, and we're just like, "This is it. Let's get it." And like, it was like the first house we saw, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Naturally.
yeah, of course. We picked our apartment building the same way. We literally toured one place, and then we're like, "This is it."
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're stupid.
I am similar, though. Like, I get giddy and start, like, imagining, like, oh, we'll put this there and this there, and it's going to look so cool. We can make this a thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that.
I was already fantasizing about the neighborhood and just everything. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. On the way back from it, you're like, oh, look at this.
This
like,
would be our Kroger or whatever.
Yeah. It's so, yeah. I do that too.
So yeah, we toured this house. We fell in love with it, and we kind of just jumped on it. We toured it again the next morning and then made an offer. And then they came back to us and were like, look, we need you to sign by 10 p.m. tonight. And also, we're just telling you up front, we're not going to give you any money for repairs. And we were like, hold on. Yeah.
That's sketch.
It was super sketch. And so this was before inspection.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like we couldn't even get a guy out there just to like take a walk through and be like, yeah, this place is built on a mud pit or whatever.
Right. No way.
What we ended up doing was they had sold it a few years before. So we like pulled up that inspection report, and like luckily like Kyle's family, like one of his uncles is like a contractor. So like he built all of his houses. So we sent it to him. We're just like, hey, can you help us?
Yeah.
And he did. He was like, yeah. Like the first thing he said, he called was, do you want to do a lot of work on this house? And I just laughed. So we backed out.
Yeah. No way. They're just trying to get somebody to get the pressure. That's kind of
I thought it was super rude.
underhanded to be like, you got to do it now.
Yeah, because they're also like, oh, we have like 1 million offers today. And it's like, it's been on the market for almost 200 days. And today is the day you have multiple offers. Okay, sweetie.
Yeah. That may just be a tactic. I don't know if there's any restrictions on them.
I know. I
saying
wish
that or
there
not.
were just more like regulations. Like, you can't just lie to me. Like, that seems so shitty. I mean, the good news is this all led to a very stimulating conversation between me and Kyle about the housing crisis. Because we were like, I mean, we're paying for this house with like book advance money. And we were like, how do people afford this? Like, if it weren't for that, like, we'd be so fucked. And like,
Oh, yeah.
and like, we're, you know, like, we're doing pretty well besides that. And we were still like, how the fuck do people afford houses? And like, I don't know, Kyle went on this giant rant. And I was like, hey, you just explained the racial wealth gap. Good job. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. It's a
man.
good date night.
That's awesome. / stressful.
It was a roller coaster. Like, I was waiting for my check to come in from like my publisher and stuff, and it was just like I had to go to the bank, turn it in, but then there was a hold on the account, and there's so much.
Yeah. Hopefully the rest of it goes easier than that. It won't go easily, of course, because you're house hunting. I mean,
It sucks.
it's not an easy process, but usually it is kind of fun in a way, as long as you don't get, waylaid by people saying sign by 10 p.m.
Yeah,
tonight.
right?
That's ridiculous.
I know. What I've learned from that is to guard my heart and don't fall in love so easily.
Yeah. It helps to have like a few choices. If you have a few choices, then you can kind of rank them and be like, well, I like this one better.
Yeah. And that way it's not like, oh, I have to sign this right now because then I don't have another option. Right.
And there's tons of fucking houses, so.
Dude, yeah, it's buyer's fucking market right now.
You don't need to be like, oh, but if I don't sign this, like, I won't get a house.
Yeah.
Like you will. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. All right. You want to get started?
Yeah, let's get started. What's our topic today? What do you want to learn about?
What we're learning about is what would happen to artists under communism.
All right. Art under communism. I like it. What sparked your interest in this? Did we get a listener question for this, right?
So, yeah, we got a listener question, and we didn't want to tackle it in our last one because I felt like there was a lot of juice there. So we're going to address it later. First off, I just want to talk about what art would generally work, like how it would work under communism and socialism. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
All right. Yeah. And this is going to be less of a me teaching you episode because I think this is more your area of expertise a little bit.
I mean, I'm an artist, yeah. I started with some background research. Do you want to hear my great research method?
Yeah, I do. I want to see what resources my students use.
Well, I Googled what would happen to artists under communism.
Hey, that's awesome. That's a very, very good first step.
I started with Reddit, honestly, and I just read some opinions, and I was like, I agree with some of these, and I don't agree with some of these, and just kind of like wrote up some bullet points based on what I was reading. And then I went to actually Marxist.org, which is where we had found the Communist Manifesto. That's where we downloaded that. And they have a place where you can like search by subject. And so I searched art into like their archives, and it pulled up like speeches and manifestos and like articles people had written. Everyone from like, Lenin and stuff to like people I hadn't heard of. But mostly fairly famous people. And it was interesting. Some of it I could not interpret. I almost sent you some of it because Trotsky apparently is a very flowery writer, and I did not have the patience for it.
Trotsky was a nerd, man.
I just could.
That's why Stalin didn't like him, because Stalin was just started out like a peasant from Georgia, That's part of their rivalry is he's like, Trotsky,
Dude, he's a big
nerd.
My eyes were like glazing over as I was reading that page. I couldn't even.
Yeah.
But what I did find, first I found this quote by Marx, which, let me read that. The writer naturally must make money in order to live and write, but he should not under any circumstances live and write in order to make money. This is something we kind of talked about in, I think, the second or third episode. When we talked about the manifesto, Marx talks about the idea of, a priest working for money and how like that's kind of fucked up. And basically what happens when different career paths only use money as their goal. And this one is talking specifically about writers, but you could make the extension to artists.
Yeah, I like that. It's basically arguing that something should be done for just the intrinsic value of them. Yeah,
basically. Because whenever you're only relying on capitalism as your goal for art, then you're probably going to make not as good art. The second source I found was from one of my favorite artists, actually. It is called A Manifesto for an Independent Revolutionary Art. This is by Diego Rivera and Andre Breton.
Nice.
You probably know.
I hadn't heard of Andre Breton, but I had heard of Diego Rivera.
Same. I hadn't heard of the second guy. So for listeners who might not know, Diego Rivera, super famous Mexican painter. He was quintessential of the Mexican muralist movement, which actually has its roots in socialism. It was all about portraying working class people, in his case, particularly from Mexico. And the style of it is kind of gritty, and it was to show like brutality of capitalism, which I liked his work for a long time and did not know that. So that was cool to find out.
Yeah, it's hardcore, man. Have you seen these murals? There's people freaking dying, just getting killed or facing down rifles and bayonets. People standing up with the like full-on actual like hammer and sickle banners saying "Go forward." There's one with Marx, and he's got a big treatise, maybe the manifesto or something. I haven't looked at it up close, but he's like saying, go forward, and you've got all the campesinos and everybody. They're like the poor and downtrodden, like, it's understandable without words, which is cool. You get the message of it.
I know. I feel like his most shared works are just the ladies with lilies, which are very nice. Don't get me wrong, but I think the art world, maybe this is wrong. It's a bad take, but I think that side of his work is emphasized more than his socialist work.
This is not an isolated case. There's, what do people in America remember Martin Luther King for?
Oh yeah, for being against discrimination.
He's a guy who had a dream, and he wanted everyone to be friends no matter what race they were. That's all they remember. They don't remember his anti-war activism, or that he died while doing a campaign to unionize the sanitation workers of Memphis.
Oh
no, don't talk about that.
Just the nice quotes.
So the same with Diego Rivera. It's just the white lilies. That's what we like.
Okay, André Breton was a French poet and is known as kind of the founder of the Surrealist movement, which is also a cool art style. I didn't know about this dude, but I guess they were friends.
The only thing I know about the Surrealist movement isn't that where Salvador Dali does the melting clocks and stuff?
That's them.
It's all I'm completely unsophisticated.
So Frida Kahlo is also a Surrealist, you can put that in there too. Now you know two Surrealist artists.
Nice.
So the quote I pulled from their manifesto is that, let's see, the communist revolution is not afraid of art. It realizes that the role of the artist in a decadent capitalist society is determined by the conflict between the individual and various social forms which are hostile to him. This fact alone, insofar as he is conscious of it, makes the artist the natural ally of revolution. I really like this. I strive to make work that has a message, and, usually the message isn't fucking that important, but I hope that it helps a little, and I don't know, it's nice. It's nice to know that other artists are on board with that.
For sure, yeah, I definitely agree with this line of thought. Artists are the natural allies of revolution, as they say.
Yes, I hope so. So we want to talk about a few things. In general, we want to look at how being an artist would work under socialism, and in this case, we're going to kind of lump that in with basically a state-sponsored socialism, probably. Not necessarily hardcore Marxist or anything, but
yeah, the way we should look at it, I guess, is socialistic in general. That can range from social democratic reformism sort of stuff to more of a revolutionary state-sponsored socialism, to more of a revolutionary decentralized social, like communes and stuff.
Yeah.
There can be a range, but that transitionary period is what we're talking about in the socialism section.
Yes, and then I also want to give some examples of how it would work under anarcho-communism, because that's my fave, it's my main boo, but also I think it's fun to imagine. It's a nice dream. It's how I keep going some days.
Yeah, and when we're talking about it, we can talk about how it might look differently depending on the organizational level and stuff. That's fine. But yeah, basically socialism in that sort of transitory period, and then communism once you get past that. We're not really going to delve too much into complete post-scarcity replicator stuff because it's all of it's easily solved then.
Yeah,
so
you're good. You can just do whatever the fuck you want all day.
And, yeah, not too interesting there. But what does it mean when people are past capitalism and able to just produce and consume based on their
there are still needs to be met, but it's nicer. So so in general, also we're going to be covering lots of different types of artists. Later on we can talk more about specifics to those types of art. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just so you know, this is going to cover visual artists, writers, musicians, all y'all. So art is art.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about reformland, socialism, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that's where we're closer to that right now. That's kind of more in our horizon.
It doesn't feel like it, but
no, yeah, I mean it really doesn't, but it's certainly closer to where we are now than communes.
Yeah,
or
fortunately
a revolutionary approach. Okay, so some things that a reformist socialism would do, to kind of help artists, I guess, or help the artistic community.
Yeah, so I think it's it's not just helping artists, but it's also like boosting the whole section of the arts, making it like a really robust community. And the most obvious one is get that social safety net stronger. I'm talking UBI, I'm talking healthcare, I'm talking public housing, all that shit.
Stronger social safety net, more what we could call decommodifying things, right? Taking things out of the marketplace.
Yes. And in case you don't know what UBI is, that stands for Universal Basic Income. It's the idea of everyone gets a certain amount of money just to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something that's been explored, strangely enough, by Democratic, leaning people. And also some Republicans have talked about this even. Yeah, I think it was Richard Nixon, actually, who had talked about guaranteeing like a minimum income for people.
Believe this.
I think his was probably still like means slider. Like you're rich, you wouldn't get it. But
okay.
It's strange to me to look at a Republican doing something like that. That's very weird. But anyway, those sorts of provisions, public housing, public health care, guaranteed. This would take so much off of people's plate in terms of what they have to do to struggle to survive, that they would have more time, more resources to pursue the art that they want to pursue.
Free college. College is a huge barrier. You don't have to go to college to be an artist. Don't if you can't do it, but it helps. And so it helps in some ways. It depends what you want to do, honestly. Yeah,
I think people know whether that's for them, whether they want to learn new techniques in that way, or if they want to do that on their own.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, I feel really strongly about this because this is, pretty personal to me. Like, I couldn't afford to go to like a formal art school because those are all private, and I went to a state school, and it turned out fine. But even then, once I was in there, I went for more of a commercial artist track. So I went for graphic design because I just figured, well, at least I can draw and not like die. And even though what I really wanted to do was illustration and comics, and I knew I couldn't make a living off that right away. And I'm still not there yet. And it just is kind of disappointing that, like, man, if I had had more support, then that could have been an option earlier on. Because I graduated in, 2015. And I'm just now, getting to the point where, okay, maybe in 5 or 10 years I can start doing this as a full-time thing.
Yeah. And society kind of encourages people to start thinking about that really early on. Like, you can have your dreams as a kid, kind of, but you do need to start curtailing them quickly to what are the dreams that will allow me to not be, living in a shack.
Exactly.
It's sad, but so many people have to do that.
Yeah. And, I know tons of artists who work part-time and at really physically demanding jobs, like in the service industry or something, and then by the time we get home, you're too tired to make any art. And it's just this horrible cycle of, I need to pay rent, but I also want to be an artist. And it's just very upsetting.
Yeah, for sure.
So another thing, speaking of jobs that we can do, is limiting the work week. I have already recommended this book on the podcast before, but Bullshit Jobs does a great job of explaining why we could probably have a 4-hour workday and it'd be fine.
Oh, yeah. 4-hour workday, 4 days a week even.
Yeah. We've all goofed around at a job before. We all know someone who's goofed around at a job before. It's a thing. We've all been in meetings that could have been an email. Yeah.
Yes. So much could be trimmed from that. Less working time with more things taken care of for you already. Your money goes further. Your time is greater. You have more of what you need to do the art you want to do. I think also it makes it more accessible for people. I think there's this idea of art being the purview of people wealthy enough to just sit around and do art.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it is kind of seen as a leisure activity. I was going to say on the workday thing, do you remember Flappy Bird?
That app?
Yeah. So I saw this meme where it was the 2 pipes, the little Mario pipes. And one of them was the 8-hour workday, and the top one was chores and cooking, grocery shopping, and childcare, all the other shit you have to do. And the middle was 30 minutes of free time. It's so sad. But that's how it feels some days. You're just how the fuck do I get everything done? And unless you have a really chill ass job, it's gonna be a struggle.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think it's not something we can just legislate a way to. That's something people have to organize about, in labor unions, democratizing the workplace so where your boss isn't tyrannizing it, because your boss isn't just going to be oh damn, Jim, you want to work less and still get paid the same. Okay, I never thought about it before, but sure. You know, like, they need to be forced to do that.
There's also this obsessive culture with seeming busy. I don't know if this is specifically American, but I feel like it is increased here compared to other countries. Like in other countries, you ask people, like, what do you do? And they'll be like, oh, I paint, I hike, or whatever. And if you ask it here, it definitely means just your job. And people are obsessed with
That's
it.
your identity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I don't know, we all like know someone in the office who's just like, oh, I'm just so slammed, like all the time, no matter like what time of year it is, they're always just slammed. And it's like, are you really? Or are you just like, I don't know. To me, it's weird.
I don't begrudge somebody for doing that at work because, you know, if you're still meeting your deadlines or whatever, while everyone's under the impression that you're slammed, I mean, you're just a good worker in the eyes of the boss, and that could save you some headaches.
So, yeah, I think that's so much of it, too, is like a lot of it's performative of like, look how busy I am. I'm still hitting all my numbers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such bullshit, man.
You don't want to kick your feet up and be like, damn, I ain't got nothing to do.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I wish we could be more honest about it, though. Just be like, look, I don't need to work this long, but I'm still doing all the work you asked of me. So shouldn't I get paid the same amount? Like, it's almost impressive that I can pull this off.
Yeah, for sure. But nope, you don't want to do that because then you just get something else put on your plate.
Stupid. Okay. What else?
So basically, socialism can provide more for people, right? Can make their lives better in terms of more social services, better pay, fewer hours, more free time, more time to be themselves, be humans.
Yeah. And you really need that time as an artist. Like, you need a lot of time to percolate on things. And I think there is value in having a separate job. We're going to kind of get into this later under like how this would work under Anarcho-communism. But I personally think there's value in having other projects to work on where you can kind of flip your brain switch. And it, to me, at least, it helps me be more creative to like be able to swap between things or to do stuff in the real world. I don't do much of it now, but
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so under socialism, we would also, if it's a more statist situation, let's talk about public works projects.
Ooh, yeah, you can do like WPA style stuff, right? You can hire people to like Works Progress Administration from the New Deal, where they hired a bunch of artists to go out and paint murals on post offices and stuff and like design things.
Yeah, I mean, Diego Rivera was a muralist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a good idea, and that doesn't have to be completely state directed. I think in our situation it probably would be, but like if you had a more diffuse situation going on, if you had like local federations of unions or something, syndicalist style or whatever, they could do that too.
For sure.
You could pool community resources to carry out public works projects like this.
Absolutely. You could do things like, it could be a PSA or something. If you're a filmmaker, maybe you're making PSAs, or if you're a designer, that could happen. It could be a statue, if you're a sculptor, if you're an architect or a landscaper. Like, there's tons of opportunities in that space. And yeah, I think that'd be cool.
For sure. No, but that would be cool. Man, I was just thinking like in the like murals and stuff, but yeah, there's so many things.
There's a lot. Basically, I think basically any art you do, you can find a public way to make it useful. Like, so I'm in the cartoonist space. Mm-hmm. So I know an artist, Tatiana Gill, who has done work for the Seattle and King County Public Health Department. And these are comics about how to properly dispose of medication, how to store medication safely, and just like really useful information. And it's in a comic format, which makes it super accessible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Or like, hell, now we need like a department of propaganda poster makers for like COVID masks.
Oh my God,
stuff,
yes. Honestly.
Those need to be, I need to see like some big, red, white, and blue emblazoned guy with like, wear your mask today, That would be
everyone. I saw someone on Twitter, they made like their riffs on like World War I era posters, but they all had masks, and they like changed the copy so it was mask related. It was really cool.
Yeah, that would be so cool. But obviously, it's the government thinks it's a hoax. They're not going to do that.
Not going to work.
Yeah, but that's an example, I guess, of how you could use it for public health purposes.
Yeah, you could also use it in like just educational work in general. If your schools are being run with sufficient funding, you can actually hire artists to help teach concepts and, help kids make their own art. Like, art education is a huge opportunity here for sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I think we need in order to make these concepts stick is the utility of art.
Okay.
Not necessarily in leftist space. I think in general, art is, like we said, seen as a leisure activity, seen as a luxury, basically. And I think we need to work on that message.
Well, yeah, because art can be seen kind of also as something to consume, something to just kind of take in passively, but it does have actually real impacts on people, doesn't it?
For sure.
It can really affect people in terms of their well-being, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, art has huge benefits for mental health. Like I said, art education is a really important field. It's really helpful for kids to do art. It's really good for their brains. And moreover, maybe this is a little too philosophical, but art's one of the things that make us human. No other species just makes art for fun. It is a thing we need to do.
Yeah, that's true. Expressing ourselves abstractly in some way. I agree with you. I don't think anything else does art that we know of anyway.
I mean, there's the painting horse and the painting elephant. Well, someone just put a paintbrush in their mouth and told them to go.
Ah, okay. I was like, how did they?
That's it.
How'd they do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that I think more people would enjoy too if they had time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't see it as a waste of time, which kind of gets into the whole, how society is always you got to be on the grind, you got to be doing something productive all the time. If you're not doing something that could either better your skills or help you produce more, then why are you doing it? You're wasting your time, Or if they weren't so tired to do it, I think more people would benefit, from doing some sort of art or participating in some sort of art.
And I think too, we talked about this last episode with our discussion on museums. If we make those spaces less elite and classist, then I think that'd be a huge opportunity, because there is kind of an intimidation factor that stops people from learning more about art. One of I'm not a fucking Western master or whatever, and just not knowing enough about it. I don't know, there's a barrier for sure.
Yeah, not knowing. Yeah, I agree with that. And seeing it as something for people with innate talents in it.
Oh, it's my least
I'm no
favorite.
good at art. I'm not good at art. I draw stick figures.
Oh, I hate that stick figures comment. It's my least favorite thing people say to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that or draw me. And it's pay me, then I'll try. No, it sucks because it's people will say oh, you're so talented. I'm like, no, man, I just kept going. All kids draw. It's just some of us keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure.
That's honestly what it is. It's just time.
Yeah.
And I will admit to being pretty privileged to have had that time. Mom and dad didn't make me get a job because I was oh, I'm drawing all the time. Whenever I was in high school,
nice. Yeah.
That was kind of my job, which is stupid. But thanks, Mom and Dad.
So yeah, I think that art definitely has a lot of utility for people, and it will have more if we're able to change, the parameters of society. If we're able to make it more supportive of people, people will have more access to that utility of art.
Yeah. So let's change society even more. Let's go to anarcho-communism.
Ooh, all right.
We did it. We made it.
Turning the dial a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think about this a lot because it's my dream world, and I think there's some cool shit that can happen with art.
Like what?
One is if you're in an artist commune. Oh my god, I would love it.
So is that a commune, but it's only artists in it, or is
I think there's some options. I think you could be the artist in the commune, if that's your jam.
The village artist.
Yes, like the bard in the party. Or, it could be a commune made up only of artists, maybe their families or whatever. But I think there's benefits to both systems. But generally, in a commune, you'd be sharing your labor. So, maybe you all have jobs of growing food or cleaning, cooking, whatever it is. Or, more traditional jobs. I don't know what the fuck that economy is going to look like. So, just jobs. So, I'll have some sort of labor.
Yeah.
But because you're working together, you're going to have more time to work on your art because, things are easier when you work together, guys. I don't know if you knew this, but it's a lot easier. And if you're in a situation where you are living with multiple artists, or even if maybe you're the only artist in your housing unit, whatever we're going to call it, but in the community, you can hook up with other artists and even do things like
Yeah.
group critiques. You can like work together to make public works projects like street art and murals and all kinds of cool shit.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's my dream.
I don't know specifically, I guess, what the economy will look like, but you're going to have to, produce the needs for everybody there, or produce whatever like, let's say you don't really cover all the needs of your community, but you're in federation with some other communities.
Yeah, you've got a trading system.
You can trade with them. Yeah, but like, you'll have to do some work involved with that. You won't be holed up in an office somewhere because nobody needs to, push around zeros in the digital space because nobody's like doing, banking or finance or anything like that anymore. That's just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll definitely have to spend some time laboring and everything, but you're no longer working to, produce immense profits so that somebody can, Jeff Bezos is over you or anything, right? So you don't have to work as much. Your hours can, like we were saying earlier, you can work less often, and all of the work that you're doing is for you and your community rather than for other people. You've got so much more time to devote to whatever you want. Maybe you're not that interested in art, but you can use that time to go look at art, to go admire art, to go listen to art. It's way more accessible for people.
Yeah, so I saw a few different takes on what this could look like. I was on that Reddit, and some people were saying, you would still definitely have to do some labor. Maybe it's a rotating labor system of like almost like the Peace Corps or something, where like you go work for a few years as a plumber or whatever, and then you get to do your own thing later. Or maybe it's an on-week, off-week situation. There's lots of different ways to structure this. Mm-hmm. Some people are also saying, and I would argue this, that art does have an inherent value. I know because I take commissions that people will pay for it. So I'm pretty sure, if I needed to in that situation, I could probably draw people stuff and they would give me like crops or whatever,
So in this situation, you're going to have, you're going to be able to survive as a member of society just by like being there.
Yeah. But I'm saying that could bring value to my commune. It's like, I'll produce some work for this other commune and they have agreed to give us whatever.
Yeah, that's true. You could do that.
This is
It's all kind of voluntary, so you could be the art person in your commune, and they're like, well, that's Christine. She draws shit, and we think it's cool. So
yeah,
she's cool. Whatever, she gets to eat at the community, at all the community places. Because like it's not just like, oh, you go down there and you go to the mess hall or whatever, and you just eat some stew. It's not like really like hardcore or something.
No, I'm talking
you have little
more
restaurants and stuff, and people like to do that. And you'll get to eat wherever, do whatever you want. You'll have stuff. I know that you're very worried kind of about like having stuff, right?
Yeah.
You would still have the stuff. There's
stuff.
no reason why you couldn't, because people do like to create those things. One of the weird dimensions that we didn't even have on this list, I think, that you could consider somewhat art is like being a chef. That's
true. Or fashion.
Culinary arts or fashion. Yeah. So these are things that people will get to do as being members of the community,
That's
and
a good point.
People will make sure that they survive and thrive because they want to use those things that they also like.
That's a good point. Okay. So I wouldn't necessarily have to barter, but I could if I wanted to.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways that it could just be self-sustaining, as long as everyone's on the same page about it and the community is. Nobody in the community is able to take advantage of anyone else, really, then it should work out.
Yeah, because, again, that's why I wanted to cover the utility of art, because I've definitely seen some takes that are like, no, you have to do, like, real work. I'm like, art's real work, guys. Like, it's physically demanding, and it's mentally demanding, and it provides a service. So, I don't know, I think there's a balance. Like, I would definitely, if I were in a commune and I was the resident artist, I would probably also do like some cooking and cleaning or whatever. I would help out with other tasks, or maybe like some childcare or something, like teach an art class or something like that.
At the bare minimum, you're going to be doing the work of keeping your house in order and everything,
Yeah, yeah. And like domestic labor is labor.
Mm-hmm. So, everybody's going to have to pull some of their own weight. Not everybody, because some people aren't able to do so.
Yeah, and that's okay.
But
if you can, you should.
Yeah.
Let's move on to different types of artists. So I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly, just kind of some rundown stuff.
So we're mentioning kind of some special situations for them, basically?
Yeah, some exceptions and maybe some more examples if we think of like, oh, here's what you could do in these scenarios. I wanted to start with commercial arts because that's kind of where I get my income right now. And if you are in this zone, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is you don't have any shitty clients anymore.
Hooray!
Yeah.
That, I hear, is a terrible part of it.
Yeah, it sucks. Clients are worse. There's lots of great like meme accounts that are, it's called like, shit clients say and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
the bad news is you won't have any clients. So
Ouch. Yeah. I don't know, but is that bad news?
that's the thing. I mean, I have met a lot of graphic designers in my time who are kind of in the same boat as me, as I really just want to draw, but this is just a way to make money. I know lots of people who are in that boat, so now you get to draw,
How many people do you know that are in the boat of, I really like to satisfy corporate clients?
I know people like that.
Well, that's weird.
I think it's weird, too.
Hey, to each their own, though. I mean, you can do that.
I'm not going to yuck their yum, but it's weird.
But yeah, I guess you really wouldn't get to do that. You could, I mean, there's ways that you could still have clients. They just wouldn't be people who are trying to do this to like make more of a profit, right? Like you would,
Yeah.
you could.
If there was, the restaurant guy, we love restaurants here. It's always our go-to fake business. But someone's like, I'm opening up a dumpling place, and you want to make a sign for me? You can still totally make a sign for them. It's just they wouldn't pay you. They might give you some free dumplings. Well, everything's free, but they might give you extra good dumplings.
Oh yeah, that's once you're in communism, it's just yeah, sure. Here's it's a beautiful little sign for the dumpling place and everything. Come get your dumplings.
Yeah.
But even in the transitionary phase, like you could have clients like the government or your local council or whatever, you'd be making PSAs like we were mentioning earlier,
Posters.
The graphic design work. Posters.
Websites.
If you're like,
those are still going to be around.
Ooh,
Apps will still be around, but they will be much less shitty. Much less, let's just say, hungry for customer data. Yeah, so basically you can make work for people, but it's just going to be a very different landscape, y'all.
I liked your mentioning of websites because I think that through the whole process you're going to want an informed community and stuff, and that's a really good way to get information out to people and everything.
For sure.
And it doesn't hurt to make it look good.
Yeah, no, I mean research shows you need good UI and UX to like actually get shit done. If it's poorly designed, people are not going to be able to use it efficiently. Yeah,
and that's in either stage, even once you're onto full communism, whether that's at the local level or more of a national or international thing. I mean, people are still going to need to get information, still going to need to access, the internet or...
It can make voting a lot more accessible.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're on a local council level, you're probably going to have to vote more often.
And hopefully everybody needs to, vote more often. That sounds sickening, really, in our current context in terms of...
hate it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, because voting here is so annoying. But if voting was just going online and clicking some buttons, complete with like links out to various sources for every issue that you're voting on, like, that's not hard to do.
This is a tangent, but real quick, let's talk about things you can do online and like it's fine.
Sure, yeah.
You can manage your bank. You can pay people. I signed a book contract online. I've almost bought a house online.
You can transfer money through your bank account. You can pay your taxes.
Yeah, but for some reason you can't vote online. It's all, taxes. For some reason that's totally fine. Even though, okay, what blows my fucking mind is, like, capitalism is the most important thing to these people. And these are all super capitalist things to do. And it's secure enough for that. But, like, why isn't it secure enough for voting? I mean, I guess because voting upholds capitalism, or not voting.
Yeah, keeping the franchise limited has always been a hallmark of this. I mean, since the beginning of liberal bourgeois democracies.
What else?
I think that's kind of it for commercial artists,
yeah, basically,
right?
You'll have different clients and eventually very chill clients.
Oh, and you'll get to do riskier stuff because nobody's going to like come down on you and be like, no, this didn't focus group test, well, or whatever. Like, they're not going to be able to, and they don't have profits to protect.
Exactly.
Like, they're just making cool stuff.
You can make cool ass shit. We've all had a client that's like, no, this is too crazy. Like, you can make the crazy shit now.
Yeah.
Let's go into fine arts, which I have in
All right.
quotation marks because, again, I have a problem with that term. But I'm talking about painters, sculptors, mixed media artists, fiber artists, all kinds of folks.
Things you would find in museums of fine arts.
Yes. We covered some of this last episode, but basically there's going to be more public galleries, so like it's a good time for that.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Free, publicly funded, widely accessible, you know, and there's no like snobby little private art galleries anywhere or anything. Nothing like that.
Yeah, you'll get to do more local work, which is really cool. One thing that I've noticed with a lot of these categories, I think I have the same note for, you know, if you're a writer, there's going to be less prestige. So, you know, there's not going to be like a celebrity. I feel like there's going to be less celebrities in general. What do you think about that?
I was wondering what you meant by prestige. So celebrities, like, you know, the famous artists or musicians is what you're saying?
I think maybe fame isn't the right term. Maybe just money is a better way to put it. Because you're not profiting as much or any, depending on if we're reform or not. And so, yeah, I mean, like Beyonce isn't going to be able to be like super fucking rich anymore. Like she's just not. But this also gives an opportunity for people who couldn't even get a fucking foot in the door to get in on the game. So, like, you can actually pursue music now. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. Lower barrier to entry, more people participating, less opportunity to really monopolize like a market share or something like that. You know, like you're not the biggest.
Yeah. I mean, you can still be famous, I guess, but it's just going to be different. Like, you're not going to be rich and famous necessarily. You're just going to be famous.
Yeah. The other thing is that people aren't going to all be trying to compete to get you to be somewhere, because why? Like, they're not going to get any money from that, or they're not going to get a exorbitant amount. Like, so like the publishing side of it, or the record labels or whatever, they're not competing for a profit off of anybody really, or much.
So you can just work with whoever you want to.
Yeah, and people, you know, these sorts of people don't have to go out and try to find somebody who appeals to as many people as possible. You know, because who cares?
Yeah,
you just appeal to this, you know, a smaller section. Like, you don't have to do that. You can find music that you like. You can find artists that you like.
I feel like it's going to be a lot more.
That.
I feel like it's going to be a lot more niche. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. We have elements of that now.
I think so. I think that's largely due to the internet, obviously. But I think if this continued in a socialist trajectory, then I'm still thinking about music as an example, but it works for books too, because capital begets more capital. So, you know, now that I released my hit fucking single, I can produce a crazy album and work with like all these really exclusive people and market the shit out of it and all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can increase your spread by having succeeded that one time.
Yeah, whereas this, you're just relying on like people, how many people genuinely like this or not.
Yeah, I think the reason we have seen it so far is because, like you said, the internet has made it easier, you know, kind of opened the gates a little bit to get a foot in.
You just got to put something on GarageBand.
Yeah, but not really significantly, you know, taking the next step. What this would do is make it even easier to expand from that, because, you know, so many more people not only can just put their music or put their artwork on the internet, but have more time to do so, have more resources to devote to it, and don't have to worry about this cutthroat music industry, really, or art industry,
publishing,
or movie industry, whatever, right? All of that kind of gunning for what is going to get us the most profit from the most people.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, for me, especially, there's such a distinct correlation between having time to work on stuff and success in art, because like I stopped a job that was taking up a lot of mental energy and time, and I started a job that has like a much better work-life balance, and within like 6 months I was like working on a book. Like, that's a huge fucking difference.
For sure. So less prestige.
Yeah, and I think it would also, on that same level, encourage more diversity too. Like, so many things are held back because, like you said, like, we're focus testing, and like, is this going to be, you know, accepted by the widest possible market? And if you take away those factors, then anyone can make it, you know? Like, so many people can get in the door.
Yeah, for sure. More diversity, maybe more localized things too, like diversity of like, who are we, what voices are we are we hearing? What people are we seeing on the screen? What stories are we telling?
Like every show doesn't have to be in New York or LA.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Interesting things happen in other places. And especially if you've got things very decentralized too, what would be cool is that you could have local film industries, local publishing industries, and things that, industries, but groups, that would be putting this together, stories about small towns and things like that.
And that'd be so cool. Like, imagine if you lived in a smaller town, like our hometown, and like someone made a movie about it that like, totally gets it, and like that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
FYI, if you do want to learn about our small town, watch the movie Bernie with Jack Black.
That's a good analysis of it.
Set in East Texas is pretty accurate.
Spot on.
Let's move on. I included craft arts as well. So this is stuff like people who sew, people who make furniture, things that you can use. Pottery, another one. Stuff like that, basically. What I included in this, and that is hella useful in a commune. So like, cool, that's gonna be great. That's how you're gonna help your community, is by making shit you can use, and that's amazing.
Yeah, like this is weird, but my note on the side of this was, what are these for craft arts? So okay,
cool.
This is dumb, but I mean, I really didn't consider that as art initially. I was just, that's just stuff.
And that's the thing. That's what one of my notes is, that this is now going to be art again, because now it's like, we'll just go to TJ Maxx and buy a fucking mug. Like, you can now buy, you want to buy it, you get a cool-ass handmade mug in the shape of a turtle or whatever, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's, could just be me being dumb. Like, maybe most people are like, oh yeah, I mean, a mug is like art. Or it could be, at some point along the way, we kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when we look at ancient societies, we're like, look at this beautiful pottery. That's obviously art,
But for them, it's just like, this is what I make bread in.
Yeah, or like, wow, look at this basket weaving. Like, that's some intricate artwork that they did on the side, and you're just like,
I mean, there's definitely a discussion that a lot of people have over craft versus art. Like, when does it turn into art? I think it's art because it's cool. Maybe that's a simplistic ass definition, but it's like, you made it and it's cool. That's art. Like, yeah, I think that stuff is.
I think it is. For sure.
I mean, there's a lot of work on, there's this term of like the beauty of everyday things, and I don't know, like designers especially are very into like having, the perfect chair, the perfect mug, or whatever. And there is a real joy that comes from that. I don't think it's all just consumerist nonsense. Some of it is, for sure. But there is something really nice. Like, I have this cute little badger mug, and it makes me so happy when I use it. It's just the cutest little thing.
So yeah, I definitely agree it's art, and like you said, extremely useful. Yeah. When your commune needs to be more self-sufficient. You can't rely on intricate webs of worldwide logistics, international trade of all these various parts, so that they can get around tax codes in various places, or labor laws and different. Yeah. You can't rely on that anymore, because that's gone, because it's no longer profitable for people. You're going to need to create for yourself things that you need. And it's going to be, in a socialist society, you're going to be more concerned with something's use value, rather than its profit. What is it good for specifically, rather than how much can I sell it for?
That's a good point, because, I mean, I think I'd put fashion in this category too. Fast fashion is like such a problem for labor, and like it's very hard to get out of that mindset. Of purchasing things because they're going to last a long time versus this is cheap and it'll work. And I think as we move forward, like, you'll have more and more sustainable options until like everything's sustainable, because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. I think that comes partly from democratizing the economy. If the economy is not focused on making profits for a few, and they make all the decisions specifically designed to make them more profit. Instead, everyone's working together, making the decisions not about the profit really, right? But about what's the best thing for them to do and for their community.
Yeah. So we talk about factories a lot in unions. So like, you could still have clothing factories. It'll just be like ethically run, I guess, right?
You could. Yeah. They'd probably be a lot smaller scale too.
I guess, why is that?
Well, because you don't, like you were saying about the fast fashion, you don't really need to mass market a whole bunch of this stuff. If you're making it last longer, it's more artisan in that way.
So it's going to be, that makes sense.
If you're still doing fast fashion, I mean, you could just keep those factories and run them, more, improve their safety standards and stuff and do it that way.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think too, because kind of like your point of like, yeah, maybe a mug is just a mug. Some people also just don't care about fashion. I really care, but like not everyone does. Some people are like, I just want a shirt. It's fine.
So yeah, I guess you could also, this would be one of your toilsome things, one of the things that everybody does have to do at some point, but it's not like your real job. It's just temporarily. But everybody does have to kind of go in there and churn out a couple hundred shirts at the shirt press.
Exactly. Maybe everyone wears a jumpsuit.
They're just standard issue shirts. Yeah, it's just like, here you go, here's a shirt. You don't. I
think we go full gender neutral jumpsuit. It's gonna be great.
It could be cool, but we don't want, so you don't want to put it like drab gray.
No, they're going to be, you can choose your color.
Dull, terrible,
you can choose your color.
Dull, terrible
and it'll,
clothes. Yeah.
And okay, another great thing about democratizing fashion, one is you're going to have more access to more sizes, which is a huge issue for a lot of people. And two, you can like tailor things to fit if they're like artisan made. You can be like, hey, this is actually what my measurements are.
Ooh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, so nice. I've never had anything tailored for my wedding dress.
Yeah. Same, but my suit. One thing I did want to bring up with craft and with this, I think, and maybe it carries across for all the different types of artists.
A lot of these apply to everything.
Is fair compensation.
Yes.
So especially in the socialist stage, versus communist stage, it's not going to really matter that much. But for the socialist stage, there is less, there's not an opportunity for a boss to rip you off, rip off your surplus labor. You're actually going to be paid fairly for your work instead of being undercut, instead of the capitalists robbing your surplus.
Yeah, and not just undercut by your boss, but also undercut by competition.
True, yeah.
And I've talked about this before too, but like the idea of, making artisan work versus, mass-produced stuff. Like, your stuff is going to have more of a fair shot.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was last episode when you were talking about, our labor episode, when you were talking about illustrators and page colorers and stuff.
Yeah.
Talking about their wages and everything. Like, that is already happening in terms of how disparate that is. You would see a lot less of that under socialism because you would have a way to actually get, what you deserve.
Yeah.
What the boss is willing to toss your way.
For sure. Another thing that kind of applies to a lot of these, I kind of broke up into local level versus state level stuff. If we're talking publishing, you could have a lot more resources for making your own zines and small print runs of books. So I think that'd be really cool. I think zines are awesome. So,
yeah, for sure. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying. If it's more localized, more diffuse, you can have more stories that reflect, the actual experience of the people there,
Yeah, and again, like, if the stories reflect the area, I think people are going to be more inclined to interact with it.
And I would love there to be more opportunities to publish, like, local histories of things.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
There's so much interesting, like, local history and basically everywhere that just doesn't really get focused on because it's not, you're not going to get grant money from, to do the history of whatever.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have street art. I have street art on this list, which, I mean, you guys just keep going, basically. Keep on keeping on. Banksy won't be rich, I guess. That's really the only difference.
And you'll have health care, guaranteed housing. I mean, you'll have shit, guaranteed to you that you don't have to, either work another job to get or, I'm ignorant maybe. You don't apply for a job as a street artist, do you? Okay.
Nothing. Some companies can commission you for stuff.
Okay.
There's definitely, it's like a big design trend. It's like, hire a muralist and people take a picture of all these social media. It's the whole thing. Or, if you're fucking Banksy, then yeah, you can sell shit or whatever. I don't even know how he makes money, but he makes money. So yeah, basically the same thing. There's not going to be Banksies anymore, but more people can do street art, and also maybe people in socialism would sponsor. One thing I want to ask about in terms of if it is a state-sponsored work, someone hires you to do a mural or whatever. I mean, I can't just paint a dick, right? I'm super curious about the client relationship as it applies to these. That's a very obvious example of probably your local council is going to vote down the dick drawing. But what if they don't? And this is our dick painting. This neighborhood loves dicks.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's
cool.
Hilarious.
That's fine.
And
I would do it.
I guess the local council or the national government or whatever it is probably going to they'll basically be a client and be like, well, so we were thinking something like this. And
yeah.
Obviously, if you do something way different than that,
they'll be like, no, we're going to get someone else.
Yeah, or please do it over.
Yeah.
But
so I guess you'll still have clients in that sense, but I just think it's interesting because it's if your community's cool enough, you can get away with some whack shit, and that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, for real. There's obviously still going to be some square communities out there.
I know. I don't know. And I think we make sure we have a chill-ass state government, too. Because what if they get into censorship and shit?
Well, they can't get into censorship for people they commission. That's just kind of them asking for what they commissioned. But in terms of you can't paint a dick mural in our town at all, I don't know. There you do run into a problem because the people should basically be in charge. So can the people be like, no, we don't want stuff like that?
I think that's okay because I think that's I don't know, because what if they didn't commission you? You're just a street artist and you just are today I want to draw this, and that's what you drew, and then could they vote to cover it up?
You would think so, because they should be able to.
Yeah.
The community should be able to decide on that.
Anyway.
But we don't know how to solve that one. Listeners, if you guys have an idea of what to do to solve, popular control of a place, democratically being able to decide for yourself what your community is going to be like, and somebody's, individual freedom to express their artwork in the way that they want to. How do we reconcile those if they conflict?
Yeah, because if you have all these public galleries and stuff, there's some real avant-garde shit out there, which I think is cool, but some people might not think it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. There's got to be some sort of, we'll have to think on that more, some sort of resolution for that.
Interesting.
But we don't have all the answers.
We don't.
All right, we're going to call it there. Tune in next week for another episode of Teach Me Communism. We will cover part 2 of this discussion, and that will include the listener question from Aiden. It will also include an organization corner on artist unions and how I really want one of those. In the meantime, you can find us on social. That is at Teach Communism on Twitter, at Teach Me Communism on Instagram, and teachmecommunism@gmail.com. If you want to send us an email, just giving us compliments or sending in a listener question, stuff like that. You can also get us compliments over on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate us and leave us a review. Love reading those. It's my favorite thing, so please do it. All right. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, I get to say the catchphrase this time. Hell yeah. Okay. What is it? Tune in to Teach Me Communism next week, where the class struggle is always in session.